everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Mike and today we are going to be talking about eyeshadow palettes again, which is my favorite topic. So yeah, we are very nearing spring, of course. Just a few more days left until we officially will be hitting spring, and that means that we need to talk about spring palettes. I did this for the fall time, I did this for the winter time, and I thought to kick off spring, to hopefully kickstart it as well, because we had some really lovely weather at the end of February. And now it's just a bit gray and dreary as I'm filming this, so yeah. Oh well. Welcome to the Netherlands, you could say. But yeah, we're talking spring palettes today, and some of these will come as no surprise to you because they are currently in my Shop My Stash, and I put them in for March because I was like, oh, these are really great spring palettes that I would like to go back to. And some of these may come as a surprise. I'm not sure if they would. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about 10 palettes that I think really embody spring to me. Now, before you think this is going to involve lots of color, I know that in spring we're all about the florals and the pastels and all that, but I don't know why. If I think of spring, I just really think of really soft, like peachy, pinky kind of looks, but very elegant and very classic. I don't really think of it as like bright, colorful, like that Easter eggy kind of vibe, like with the pastels and stuff. I like that, but I just did a video last September about my favorite colorful palettes for pale skinned people. So I'll link that in the eye above in case you're interested in seeing that. So today the focus is going to be on palettes that sort of give me everything, you could say. So they give me the neutrals, but they also give me the Easter eggy vibes that I like to play around with. And they are just good all-rounders to really take me through the entire season and not just Easter. So let's just get to it and talk about these 10 palettes. So for those people who have followed my channel for a while and who have been watching my Shop My Stash videos, you know that I have been selecting some older palettes that I want to make a point of going back to during a single month. And for March, I selected 3 of my favorite spring palettes precisely for that reason. And I think it doesn't get more spring than this palette, but I've heard that this has been discontinued, so I do apologize if you were now hoping to get it and you're like, oh, I can no longer get it. But it would be the Nabla Soul Blooming. And just like the colors of the flowers on the front of this palette, that's what we get inside. So we have like these peachy, pinky, periwinkle kind of shades with some neutrals, and that's exactly what this palette does. It's a bit messy, hold on. But we get sort of like some matte neutrals to sort of see us through, but then we get these like pinky, peachy shades. We get some like periwinkle, indigo, violet kind of shades as well. We get a couple of really stunning duochromes in here. These 3 actually, they're in a nice little line. And then we just have some like something warm to deepen things up and a good deepening shade here as well. That really nicely bridges the gap and can work with some of the warmer tones that it has, as well as some more of the neutrally cooler tones that it has. You can do a very basic, very matte eye with this if you'd like, if you just stick to these 2 like creasy transition shades. Especially this shade I feel is really nice in the crease because again it goes with both the periwinkle as well as the peach, I feel. And then this one is perhaps a little bit more neutral leaning. So just this all over the lid with a bit of that brown as like a deepening shade can just be a very soft neutral look. But you also get some pops of color to play around with. It's very sort of that vibe that I was describing with like pinky peaches, neutrals, and some Easter eggy kind of colors. If there is one color that I love, it's periwinkle. Teal, taupe, periwinkle. Those are my 3 favorite things on the planet. And in here you get a periwinkle matte, and then you get this duochrome shimmer that is more of a topper, I have to say. But topped over that periwinkle shade, it is absolutely lovely. So again, that in the crease all over the lid with this on top, really pretty, really stunning, soft, feminine look. Maybe you can put that purple in there with a bit of liner. There's just so many options that you have with this, and I'm pretty sure I did already review this over on my blog. So any palettes that I have dedicated reviews for with close-up swatches and multiple eye looks, which I think goes for a lot of these, then I will make sure to link those in the description box down below, because then you can have a look. So in case you're wondering why I don't put these things in, I already have them, but they're on my blog, but I always link those things. And then of course another palette that, if you say spring, I say Sweet Peach. This of course was, I think, the palette that so many people lusted after like 5 years ago or so. And I remember this hype. I think I saw Nikki tutorials using this for the first time and me going, but Too Faced isn't available in the Netherlands, so how am I going to get my hands on this palette? And then I was on a trip to London. I had not expected to find it, and they still had 5 in stock at Debenhams. So I picked one up. So I really got this as like one of the first batches that they did. I've heard people say that this palette wasn't as good in later renditions. I don't know. I just got incredibly lucky because it was a palette I did not expect to be able to buy that quickly. By now, of course, this palette is no longer limited edition, but it was supposed to be limited edition. And then because of popularity, I think they just decided to make it permanent. This palette, I've said this many times before, I only use this part. And then you can see that it's just really, really fair. So I don't really go into the deeper shades, though I do like this shade here called Charmed, I'm sure, and I also quite like Summer Yum. But pretty much what I tend to do whenever I use this palette is that I start the look with Puree in the crease. I really like Bellini all over the lid, or Luscious, maybe a bit of Cobbler. I really enjoy Nectar. I also really like these two matte shades here for blending things out. Maybe a bit of Caramelized, and that's about it. I don't really use Just Peachy and Candied Peach. So the two strongest peachy shades in this palette I hardly ever use. But I do really enjoy Bellini all over the lid. And that's actually a look that I did the other day. I needed like a quick, really easy eye, so I just put Puree in the crease, Bellini all over the lid, and I think I used a bit of Cobbler on the outer V just to give it a bit more depth. And it worked really well. So yeah, I do really enjoy this palette, but it definitely has its limitations. And after 5 years, the scent has finally worn off because I could not use this for like the first 2 years of owning this because of that really strong peach scent. I know a lot of people like that about this palette, and everybody was raving about the chocolate bars and the sweet peaches, like, oh, it's got such a lovely scent. I do my makeup at 7 a.m. at the latest, people. I don't want to have to smell Haribo peach candy scents that early in the morning. It's just not the time of day to be using that. So for me, this palette and its scent definitely put me off of using it for a long time. But it is perfect for the springtime, and I'm happy that I put it again in my Shop My Stash. My third Shop My Stash palette is the Soft Glam by ABH. I already put it in for February, but I already said then that I was like, this is more of like a March, April kind of palette for me. Maybe it's because it was released in March, April time that I categorize it like that. But for me, this is really that soft, rosy look that I like, especially if you use Dusty Rose, which is this matte here, and then something like Rose Pink or Sultry, maybe deepening it up a bit with Mulberry. That's just my favorite look in this entire palette. So I definitely still want to do it. I haven't reached for this palette yet, but hey, we're only about 2 weeks into the month. We still have some time. And I tend to use these like older palettes on days where I just quickly need to get ready and I need to make a look and I'm not trying out anything new. I'm wearing a look with a completely different palette today that's not going to be mentioned in any of the palettes that I have selected for you. But yeah, I really like the rosiness of the Soft Glam. That's what I love. And I actually thought when this was released initially, I thought it was going to be too dark for me. However, if you take the dark, like the black out of the equation, do you just see that it's not super deep at all? And I really like Cypress Umber. That's also one of my favorite shades in this Modern Renaissance. And then Rustic is nice too. I just don't really use the two orangey shades. So Burnt Orange and Orange Soda. These are the two that I just kind of skip. But everything else in here I do really like. But yeah, my favorite thing to do with the Soft Glam is that rosy toned eye that I like so much. And to keep the rosy train going, I also wanted to make sure to put in something more affordable in this video, and I think this palette is now available more widely than just here in Europe, and it's the Catrice Pro Slim Next Gen Nudes eyeshadow palette, and this is the drugstore dupe alternative, I should say, to Huda Beauty's new nude. It's not as pink, but it again has that sort of like pinky vibe to it. It's a bit more cool toned leaning, especially towards the deeper end of the spectrum, but it also has a really stunning like shimmering pink, a really nice like deeper rosy shade for a crease shade, and then you have some like mauves to round it out, and as I mentioned, some cool tone shimmers as well here. So this, I think, it's not as deep and sultry as the Soft Glam. This is a lot more neutral, but if you're looking for a more affordable, very rosy tone palette, then this is a really, really good one to try if you can find it. I really enjoy this, and the quality of this, oh wow. Some of the mattes in here, especially this cream colored shade, it took me 3 tries for me to determine that indeed it wasn't a cream, but it is a powder shadow. That's how buttery smooth the mattes are in this palette. They are so smooth and buttery that they feel like creams. The shimmers perform really well too. My memory card was full, so I don't know where I'd left off. But yeah, I was saying that Catrice is now coming out with some new palettes in this line for the spring-summer update. And one of them is a bit more purpley, lilac, lavender kind of leading, it seems. And if there's any time of the year, it's right now that I want to wear those kind of shades. And if the quality is anything like this one has to offer, then I'm down. And then we're gonna go in what I would deem the Easter egg section of the video. So we've had favorites, rosy tones, but I also love a good pastel, and I think that if there's a pastel palette that I think is quite affordable and that does what I need it to do, and that isn't just like a rainbow pastel kind of palette, because a lot of pastel palettes are just a rainbow but then in pastels, and I'm always like, what am I supposed to do with that? But I think the Deuce by Juvia's Place, if you can still find it, it gives you some pastels but also some shimmers and some neutrals. So I feel that in terms of a spring palette, this again has like that peachy pinky kind of shade. It's got some like pastel-y stuff over here. You've got a bit of warmth, you've got a shade to deepen things up. This pink shimmer is really lovely. My favorite shade in the palette is this grayish green tone shimmer. That is absolutely stunning, and this actually makes for a really great transition for me as well. So I think that in terms of more of an all-rounder palette that gives you pastels and that is more colorful if you'd like it to be, but that isn't like a rainbow pastel-y palette, then I think the Deuce is a really lovely one. However, I'm not sure, but I believe this is starting to become a bit more difficult to find. At least I haven't really checked the Juvia's Place website in a while, not since Black Friday, since I last placed an order with them. But some of these like 9 pans, these like square palettes, like the Tribe, Saharan 2, the Deuce, they seem to be going in and out of stock, and once they're out of stock, it tends to take a long time for them to restock them. And I think the Deuce is also fitting in that line. So if you can still get your hands on this, make sure you do, because this is a lovely, lovely, lovely palette. The shade in the middle looks very purple, but once you put it on your eyes, it pulls a bit more pink. And where would we be without the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette? I don't understand how they could release this as a Christmas limited edition, even though it's still available, so not that limited edition. For me, this is a spring-summer palette. So this was released at the end of 2019, and I completely passed over it because I was like, I don't need this. And then last year, spring-summer came around, and I was like, you know what would be a good palette? This one. So then I ended up buying it a few months later because I was like, it's got the peaches, it's got the pinks, it's got something lavender lilac, it's got something minty. Yeah, so it's got all of the shades that you could possibly want that are very soft, very feminine, very, very spring-like. And what this palette does that none of the other ones I've shown you have is a bunch of really great, very textured shimmers that allow you to create a dimension in your looks that not many other palettes on the market can give. However, if you have a deeper skin tone, this may not work for you, because if I cover these 2 shades up, do you just see that it doesn't run very deep, and that really the only 2 shades that you get to deepen things up are like a plum and a very deep rose shade. So that's something you have to be aware of. I think that if they could have taken out one of these two shimmers and put in like a deep dark brown, I think this palette would have had a lot more versatility for a lot of people, and a lot more people would have raved about it. However, I really appreciate it because with my fair skin, my cool to neutral undertone, this is quite possibly one of the best spring palettes that I've ever tried. I think I need to roll this into my Shop My Stash in like April or May. I definitely have to go back to this because this is such a lovely palette, and those textures are just phenomenal. And then another palette, as I was sort of brainstorming which palettes I wanted to put in this video, I decided that I was also going to feature this, the Odins Eye Solomona eyeshadow palette. And this was a complete surprise to me when I received it, because this color story isn't one where you go like, yes, I instantly know what I want to do with it. But in terms of perfect for spring, all you need is this really stunning matte lilac shade. I don't think there are any other matte lilacs on the market, save for the one in like the Creepy Cute perhaps, that are as good as this one is. This is a stunning palette. I think this is the one palette I think I have for you today that I don't have a review for yet because it's quite new to me. I haven't had a chance to put it up on the blog yet. But this is really, really stunning. Again, you get a really good neutral transition shade. You get something to deepen it up. You get some interesting shimmers, especially this duochrome here. And also this duochrome here are really nice. You get a shimmering teal. We all know how I feel about teals. The only thing I wish this palette didn't have is two nearly identical mustardy kind of shades. So this is a bit more orange. This is a bit more yellow mustard. So I would have liked to have just this and then have this be something different. Again, perhaps a more brown tone transition or something like that, just to round it out a little bit better. I just feel that this is too orange for my liking. So is it perfect? No, but it has some really stunning mattes, some really stunning shimmers. And in here, you also get a 50-50 split between mattes and shimmers, which is what I appreciate. As I was saying that I thought that that was the only palette I don't have a review for, I still need to also get around to reviewing the Nabla Cutie palettes. And this is the Cutie Coral. And I bought this because Angelica Newqvist raved about this so much. And when they did the new Cutie palettes last year, because I passed up on these initially. So when the Platinum came out and the Wild Berry, they also did the Metropolitan, I believe. And I decided to buy this one over that one because they seemed very similar. And I thought that this could be something different for me. Because in case you don't know, I'm not the biggest lover of warm tones. That's what I'm saying as I'm wearing a warm toned look. Oh well. But I do really like corally peachy kind of shades. These two shimmers are life. This matte in the crease, magic happens. You get a red, which seems perhaps like a very odd choice, but it actually is the shade that's going to create interest in this palette. And then we just get a matte brown and like a bronzy shade. The bronze I could have done without, to be quite honest. I'd have liked that to be a different shade. I'm not really a big fan of bronzes and golds. Those are just not my kind of warm tones, but like this duochrome shimmer, this also has like a really interesting shift to it. And then this dark brown is just stunning for deepening things up or to create as a little bit of liner. But yeah, this is a great either one look in a palette or a very basic look. It's very, very spring appropriate because for me, these four shades, let me cover these two up. Like, don't these four shades just remind you of spring flowers? They just do. And then next up, we're almost there. This is palette number 9, another warm tone palette. So if you got a little bit more money to spend, because this is the bougie option of the bunch, Pat McGrath's Rose Decadence palette. I bought this last year and I think I'm the only person who likes this palette because so many people were saying how they didn't like it. But like if we have to go warm tones, I want it to be this. Again, the two shades I could do without are these two, the yellow gold and like the bronzy peachy shade. The bronze in this one isn't that terrible because it has that peachiness to it, making it different from many other bronzes that I have. But for me, where it's at is this matte plum and then the entire top row, especially the peach matte shade in the middle. When I put that in my crease and I blended it out, I was like, oh yeah, this is why I love Miss Pat. So this is just a stunning, stunning palette. You get something a bit more plummy, purpley to go with the peaches, and I felt it worked really well. So if this kind of like corally peach kind of vibe from the Cutie palette with the red is perhaps a bit too intense for you, and you want something warm toned that's still that like spring flower kind of vibe, then I think that this is perhaps a better pick. It's just going to give you some more options to keep it more neutral, I find. So yeah, the Pat McGrath Rose Decadence, it was an instant hit with me when I tried it over the fall time. So yeah, I had to give this a mention somewhere. Now, and I've already alluded to liking lilacs and like purples. If there is a color, I don't know why. Again, I think it's flowers because of like all the florals around. If there is a color that I want to put on my face this time of year, it's purples. And I thought, what better palette on the market that, again, nobody liked apart from me, it seems, but that bridges the gap very nicely between neutrals and purples than the Urban Decay Naked Violet. I know not everybody loved this, but we all know I like a good Urban Decay shadow. I like how buildable they are. I don't want boom pigment that I need to blend for days to get it to look nice on my eyes. I want something where I can just go in with a fluffy brush and I can just dust it all over my lid and it will look nice. Like I'm that kind of person. So yeah, Urban Decay does that formula very well, I find. And in here we get some neutrals that you might like and then some purples. The thing this palette misses is a good enough like matte purple. We get a matte, but it's quite light to go with some of the deeper ones. However, what I really like is that these three purpley shimmers, this is like more like a pink to blue shift, this is like a true purple I would say, and this is that blurple kind of bluish purple kind of shade, like black light almost. So I feel that these make for these really soft purpley shades, and of course you can do an all purple look with this, but paired with some of the neutrals that are also a bit peachy leaning. There we go again with the peachy pinkness. And also this is a peach with a gold shift. This is a duochrome. This is a duochrome. I think that this palette is that soft, very pretty spring look that I really appreciate, but then gearing more towards a little bit more color than some of the other options that I have. In fact, you can just make this a full-on colorful look. I think you can do it with the Juvia's Place as well, with the Deuce. I think you can do it here as well. The other palettes, they have color, and you could make it work, but you don't have to. Whereas these two, I think you can definitely make like a full-on colorful look if you so wish to do that. So that's it. There you have it. Those were all of the spring palettes that I wanted to talk about with you today. Please leave a comment down below and let me know what spring palettes are your favorite ones for the season, because I think we all have our own preferences. And yeah, without further ado, thank you very much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make 3 new videos a week, so I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye!